Welcome to the GrayHawk DJC podcast. In today's podcast, we talk with Matt Jones, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Very good.
Awesome. I haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to see you.
Likewise.
Hope you're doing well.
I am.
All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I was excited to do it. It got pushed back 1 week, and I've looked forward to it now for at least 2 weeks.
All right. Awesome. I'm glad you're here. This is very exciting for us because you have a skill set that I think a lot of people would be interested in. So you are a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And let's get some backstory on you. So before we really dive into it, tell us where you're from, your history, and we'll get to know you a little bit.
So I'm from California, and growing up, I kind of stick to like sports and stuff.
Since you've been young, you played sports, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't athletic at all.
Okay.
I did like baseball and basketball, and I did the one martial art I tried first was karate. Wasn't super excited about it.
What made you want to do it though?
Well, my dad put me in baseball because he loved baseball, and he says, if you don't pick something, you're going to keep doing baseball. Okay. So I wouldn't pick, and then it would be baseball. And then one time I did, and it was karate. And I didn't really know what I wanted. So I ended up doing baseball a lot, which was okay. And then in high school, I was a little kind of finding myself a little more. And I'm like, I really want to know martial arts.
Right.
And that's when I did Taekwondo. And I was definitely more serious into that than all the other sports.
So that was a little different from you than taking karate lessons, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
Karate was a big group, and each kid didn't get a lot of attention. It was kind of like an after-school filler for parents, at least this dojo. Okay. And then Taekwondo was, the instructors were really good. They cared a lot. And I could notice a difference in myself, little stronger, a little more confident. So that I liked a lot. Was it
the instructors that helped you a lot, or do you think it was just the Taekwondo that you liked?
Both. Okay. Yeah, both. I think a good martial arts instructor will kind of get that out of people. Okay. The karate instructor at first wasn't quite as good. These fellas at my Taekwondo first school were really good.
How old were you at this time?
I think I started when I was 15, and I kind of had burned out by maybe a year and a half later. So I was 16. Right. I didn't make it to black belt. School was a little harder at that point. I had a job, and of course I wanted to hang out with my friends a little more. Sure. So that took over. Okay, so you're a regular teen at this time. Yes. Okay, and then what happened after that, I guess? After that, graduated high school, went to college. So I went to college in Long Beach, and I was there probably about a year before I met Evaldo. So I'm going to back up a little. My friend Marcus at the time, instant camaraderie when you move out of your parents' house, and I lived in the dorms, and he was like my best friend away from home right off the bat. Right. We were both kind of homesick, and we met each other, and we had heard about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And
where'd you hear about it? Do you remember?
Oh, actually, one of the guys in the suite, that's a good question. One of the guys in the suite told us about it, and he had some classes. He probably had less than 10. Okay. So ironically, someone with very little jiu-jitsu experience gave me my first lesson. He pulls guard. So for the listeners that don't know what guard is, I was on top. His legs were around my waist, and he says, try and hit me. And I thought, and he kind of hugged me and like pulled me in so that I couldn't load up a punch. So I kind of like, if the microphone were his head, like I wasn't really going hard. I just like tap him. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I could definitely get a pretty hard punch in, but I see what he was trying to show me.
Right.
It wasn't the best first impression, but it didn't degrade my desire to want to train jiu-jitsu.
Right. This is on the floor of the dorm.
Yes.
Basically. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it was, man, it must have been about 60 seconds because I had those pants that they're pants, but you can unzip them into shorts. Mm-hmm. So like we kind of started sparring and he pulled it and it unzipped, like he thought he ripped it. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And that was it. We were kind of done then. I wasn't like super impressed with what was going on. And you need to learn a lot more before you start sparring like that.
Sure,
right. But we weren't trying to hurt each other. It was pretty tame. But that was my first jiu-jitsu experience.
Okay.
And then back to my friend Marcus. Mm-hmm. So we're saying, we got to find a school and sign up. We said this for a year. Okay. And then eventually we move out of our the dorms. Actually, we lived in an apartment for a while, so more like a year and a half before we parted ways as far as being roommates. But about a month later, he calls me and he says, I just signed up at a jiu-jitsu/MMA place. And that made me say, okay, I'm not procrastinating anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go find a spot.
What year is this?
What year? This would have been, let's see, that would have been 2004.
Okay.
So in 2004, and I kind of said that story to some friends, and they're like, Matt, right around the corner, there's a Jiu-Jitsu Academy. And I'm like, I didn't know that. Long Beach is kind of weird, especially where our house was. It was like in more of like not an industrial part, but I mean, there's a business to our left and to our right, and we're a residential home right in the middle. Mm-hmm. Well, not 60 steps walking out my door and turning the corner and walking down the street a little was Evaldo's school.
Just pure luck.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Like I could throw a stone with my left hand and hit his front door. Mm-hmm. So I said, now wait a second. I've heard Gracie Jiu-Jitsu's the best one, so I still might be picky even though this Jiu-Jitsu Academy is close. So like it says Gracie right on the window. Mm-hmm. So I was like so excited. I walked in a day or two later and met Evaldo.
Okay.
At that time, he must have had about 5 students.
Okay. He
had taught in his garage, and then decided to open up a school because of the demand for his teaching. He was already a good teacher. And
so when I walked in, Evaldo? Can you explain?
Yes, Evaldo is my professor. Mm-hmm. He is a black belt under Royce Gracie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and Royce Gracie's father is Elio Gracie, one of the founders of Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
You know, if you're going to name one person as the founder, you're going to name Elio Gracie.
Right. So he's 3 down.
Yes.
Basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm pretty excited. I'm that close to the core.
Right.
Yeah, and I've met Royce. I met Royce and trained with him a bunch of times. I'll go into more detail on that later.
And for people who don't remember, Royce is the winner of the first and second UFC tournaments.
Yes.
When he introduced it kind of to the world, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
He was, I think he was 20 years old, and his brothers threw him in there, and he's just tapping people out, and the spectators don't know what's going on, or they don't know what jiu-jitsu is.
I remember watching it I watched the first and second, like literally live on TV. And we were all like, what is this guy doing? Because he's only 170 pounds, right?
Yeah, I'd say right around there.
Taking guys out that are 250, 220, whatever.
Yeah, and they were the best at what they do, you know?
Right.
So that is quite impressive, and that's why I was so interested when I lived in college in the dorms.
Okay.
But I'm still going to college at this time. Mm-hmm. Where were we? So I walked into Evaldo's school. Mm-hmm. It was really small, probably 1,500 square feet. He was a brown belt at the time. I would guess a 1 stripe brown belt. And classes were 2, 3, 4 people.
Okay.
And probably met 4 times a week, adults only, that's it.
Okay.
Because why have more classes? Just going to make them, the attendance smaller, right?
And at this time, it's not very popular or well known.
Correct.
Okay.
And not super well known. Funny because UFC happened in, I think, 1992 or 1993. And this is 2004.
Right.
So I still remember the first move he showed me. He's like, if someone's coming down and hitting you like this, you can block it and submit their shoulder. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. You know, he's holding my arm and I'm tapping. It's just pure power. He's a little bigger than me, but that didn't matter. And people would come in and this is kind of like the early days. A big, mean-looking guy would come in. Maybe he has a background in karate or maybe he's a wrestler or whatever. And I was kind of intimidated, but he was their first spar session, and he'd humble them. And then the guys either wants to stay and learn and he's chilled out a little, mm-hmm. or kind of leaves bruised ego.
Right.
Yeah. So I always really respected that. I mean, just anybody could come in and he answers the bell.
Wow. Okay. So how long did it take for you to know that this is something I really want to do?
Funny, I trained probably once or twice a week for a year, and I liked it a lot. And actually my reason for doing it was if something ever happens, I want to know how to protect myself. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say I was really into it till after roughly a year, a little less, because a blue belt came in, and I had trained for, I'll say 6 to 8 months at this point. Mm-hmm. And with my other now probably 6 or 7 people in the academy, we're all white belts, and this blue belt came in. And of course, Evaldo could tap me out and throw me around. He's a brown belt. He's the teacher. But when I understood a blue belt is just one belt up, and he really just manhandled me, got the better of me, wasn't much bigger than me. And that's when I thought, man, I would love to know and be able to do what he just did. Mm-hmm. That was like my first spark that I really love this. Okay. By far the biggest inspiration's my professor, Evaldo Lima, but that was like a realistic goal, like not too far off, where Evaldo's ability was like way, way, way off in the distance.
Sure.
So I'll tell you how I got my blue belt. That was funny. There was a seminar, and Royce Gracie taught it, and let's see, at the end of the seminar, you don't see this much anymore. I'm sure it still happens. So, this isn't gospel, but, we had to spar other people, and, I sparred another white belt, and, I don't think he was very good. It wasn't Evaldo's student, cause we had people coming in, but, I think I tapped him out in like an arm bar or something. Again, he wasn't very good, but that's right when Royce looks over and he sees me get a submission. Mm-hmm. And I'm a 3-stripe white belt, okay? So for listeners, you get your first stripe, second, third, fourth, and then your next promotion's a belt, whatever belt you're at. Okay. So I had 3 stripes on my belt. I don't know if he had a thick accent then, or he just kind of mumbled something to me at the end of the seminar, mm-hmm. and I didn't understand what he said. So I asked Evaldo, what did he say? He goes, he says for you to put on a blue belt. But Evaldo knew my pedigree much more accurate than Royce.
So Royce said to put on a blue belt for you.
Yes.
So he kind of promoted you on the fly.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
And by Evaldo's standards and me looking back by my standards, I think I was a little below.
Sure.
So I don't think it was that day, but there was no ceremony or big deal whatsoever. Evaldo, I walk into the school to train, and Evaldo says, "Come here," and he gets into like a cardboard box of like storage, and he's shuffling around, and he pulls out this like old blue belt. I don't think it was his. I think it was like, who knows the story behind this blue belt. Kind of half its life is done, right? So he hands it to me, and that was my blue belt.
Oh my God. So is that more relevant to you than getting your black belt, let's say?
No, but it's so much more formal now to get any blue, purple, brown, or black. That I really enjoy that story. It's so wholesome and old school.
Sure.
Things are just much different now.
Okay.
So I really like that story a lot. Oh yeah, he was basically rolling his eyes, handing me the belt. He says, you need to get better. You know, he's
Sure.
like, so that he's a great teacher. Those words and seeing that unravel really made me more excited to train and kind of feel pressure to get better.
Right.
Yeah.
So at this point, do you realize that this is it? I'm going to do this really as much as I can.
Not yet.
Okay.
This next story is it.
Okay.
We do maybe at this point 4-minute rounds or 5-minute rounds of sparring, and we'll do like 2, maybe 3. And then my buddy comes in. He's the same rank as me, and he goes, "Do you want to spar for 20 minutes?" And I thought, you're insane. I mean, 20 minutes, it's like sprinting for 20 minutes.
Right.
What happened to 10?
Yeah.
You know, we're doing 5. What happened to 10 or 15? So I said, okay, let's do it. So we spar for 20 minutes, and it's like your brain at the 15-minute mark just locks in, and you have all those little outside stimuli, they're gone. Your brain says, okay, we're doing one task here. That's sparring. We're trying to submit each other. So I was very focused, and it was kind of like a blissful feeling. And I was transitioning better than ever. It was just like night and day, and that really made me excited.
Okay.
Because I thought I started to try to chase that every week. Sparring for 20 minutes now, I guess if it's another black belt and we're really going for it, yeah, that's a lot.
Right.
Even for me now. But me sparring one of my students or even a brown belt and we're kind of going 80%, 20 minutes isn't a big deal. So back then, when I'm going for 20 minutes, I couldn't do it like every day, or I would have. So I would, as a blue belt, I'd walk out of Evaldo's school just absolutely drained and be driving home. It's just such a great feeling.
Right.
When you're all beat up. Maybe you won, maybe you lost, but it's just a really good feeling.
So at this point, are you thinking this is going to be part of my life?
Yes. Okay. Especially like months after that 20-minute spar session when I had a couple more. Heck, some days I'd probably do 6 or 7 5-minute rounds, and that got me there. Or, yeah, a 20 or 25-minute round. But enough of those, I'm like, man, this is so awesome. It's like, I was never a gambler, but I'm going to use this as a metaphor. Picture you're gambling and you win and you win and you win. Your brain just lights up. So when I did that, I was submitting my peers, a blue belt. At that time, I'd probably tap a blue belt out once every roll, 0, 1 or 2 times. And then it's like 2 or 3, and they're not catching me back.
Right.
Yeah. It's hard to keep that string up because then, I'm working and a full-time student. So if that got busy, I take 3 or 4 days off in a row. Well, David or Nelson didn't, and they're still sharp.
Right.
And they're doing the same stuff I'm doing. They realize on their own, if I spar more, I get better. Mm-hmm. So that was very exciting.
So when it's a part of your life, are you thinking you want to go into competition, or are you thinking I'm going to teach, or how did that happen?
At this point, I just wanted to be a really formidable fighter / sparring partner.
Right.
Tournaments were terrifying to me then.
Okay.
I did my first 10 tournaments. I did just because Evaldo said, you should do this tournament. We're all doing it. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, I show up the most. I want to make him proud because I see how much time he puts into me, especially looking back and having more or less worn his shoes as a teacher. You can't put that much time and energy into every student. Mm-hmm. And I was one of his first students. And actually, 2 years later, after my day one, there was me. I was his oldest student because all the 5 or 6 that started before me all quit. Okay. There was a father and son, Jesse, both named Jesse. They started like a month after me, so they were on the journey with me from the very, very beginning. Okay. Yeah.
When did you get comfortable with tournaments then?
I would say it took about each tournament. I got 1% less anxiety. Okay. Right. Uh-huh. And then probably about. I definitely felt better after like 3, but significant anxiety drop after, I'd say, 7 or 8. Okay. Yeah. I'd won a few, lost a few. You're still chasing stuff though. Like it took a while for me to get a takedown. I'd gotten submissions. Yeah, I got submissions before takedowns because you're like aware in your head. What have I not done yet in a tournament?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it took a while for you to get comfortable.
Yes.
Let's talk about your journey to being a black belt then.
Okay.
So how long did it take you? What was that like? What happened?
So each belt is very significant. I learned something different each belt. I started helping Evaldo teach when I was a blue belt. Okay. So by the time I came out to Texas to teach full time, I had a lot of experience. Okay. But journey to black belt, we would do self-defense tests. That's where 3 or 4 people are around you and they're going to grab you in some way, and you got to perform the right technique, not miss a step. Mm-hmm. You don't want there to be a long pause. Okay. So that was very important.
How many years did it take you?
Let's see. I started in 2004 and I got my black belt. Let's see. 12 years. Okay. Yeah.
That's usually the time frame, right?
Yeah. Okay. 10 to 15 is a nice big window for it. Now, if you go into jiu-jitsu with like a wrestling background, I'm talking about like college wrestling, or you're a black belt in judo, then that'll shave some years off for sure.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a good black belt then?
Okay, that's a good question. I think a good black belt, people think of a black belt like, oh, they're very formidable, which is true. I'm not going to spend time talking about that as much as they should be a good teacher. Okay. They should have integrity, honest, help people around them. What else can I say about a black belt? Student comes in, any belt rank, they shouldn't be afraid to spar them.
Okay.
I'll see other black belts like that. Even brown belts, purple belts, and a lower rank comes in and they, you'll hear that, I'm tired today. My arm hurts today. So kind of bugs me when I hear a black belt make these excuses.
Sure.
You could say that one in 20 days, you know?
Okay. Now, I've never seen you spar because the times we've interacted, it's with my kid, right?
Right.
But for the adult classes, are you sparring?
Yes.
A lot of that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So when I hope I'm not skipping ahead too much. We could always go back.
Sure.
When I first started my school here in Texas, after moving from California, it's like you'd have like 3 people there. And one is like big and strong and young and fast. And then 2 less experienced, smaller, more, introvert, docile. So I want everybody to walk out the door having sparred their fill. Okay. So the first 2 years till I got like a few more higher belts to spread it out, I really got home very tired.
Sure.
Because I'd have a morning class and that person wants 4 rounds, I spar 4 rounds and we're going hard. And then the evening class, that big mat enforcer's gone. There's a new mat enforcer and then I spar them.
Right.
But I enjoy that. I learned a lot. I learned how to, and a lot of my lessons were learned by Evaldo. He'd put me in these situations. I'd be on my back. He'd have a guy 30, 40, 50 pounds heavier than me in a dominant position, go. And as soon as I get out, you're gone. Next one on top of me, go. Right. Over and over and over, like an assembly line. So you could tell someone how to endure that all day. But if you don't do it, you're not going to learn it.
Right.
And I'm also real happy I started when I was young because I pushed the envelope 20 times too hard, got hurt. Well, I'm young. I heal really fast.
Sure. You said you started teaching when you were in blue belt, right?
Yeah. So Evaldo's, at one point, must have been a year, he said, I'm going to start having kids. We just had 2 kids, maybe 3 for like several months.
How old were they?
Let's see. His son wasn't old enough yet. Wouldn't be for a few years. There was Angelina. She was maybe 4. Wow. And then Jesse. There's 2 Jessies that started after me. He was like 11. Okay. And there was a girl. Her name starts with an A. I want to say her name before the podcast is up. It's eluding me right now. She was like 13. Okay. So this 11-year-old and this 13-year-old sparred. She was much better than him. He was the most docile kid, not aggressive, not too strong. He turned out to be, still to this day, I've been in jiu-jitsu for like 18 years, one of the most impressive. Oh, wow. He didn't keep it up, but right around, this kid, Jesse, right around 15 and a half, 16 years old, it's like overnight he turned from boy to man. And he was, he had the strongest grip. And the average person has one hand in your collar. It's like code yellow, if that. If this kid has one hand in your collar, it's already kind of code red. Because if he gets the next one, you're toast. And he's really good at getting that second hand in.
Oh, wow.
People weren't ready for that. And they're, and he's younger. Picture like a 25-year-old, just all of a sudden they're asleep because they're like, I'm going to get out. I've been put to sleep, but not by him. Sure. I remember that hand coming in my collar and I respected it. Right. Sometimes just respecting the attack is enough to get you out.
Right.
But I talk about him a lot in if I'm teaching a move and it's relevant to something he did, I talk about him.
So when did you realize teaching was going to be a career for you?
So I was working the 9 to 5, learned a lot from the CEO at this job, really smart guy. He was supportive of jiu-jitsu, but one of my... You're
out of school by then and you're working full-time.
Yeah, I'm out of school. Yeah. Let's see, I would have been... Oh, man, I was already 30 or 31.
Okay.
My professor says one of the purple belts wants to move to Texas and open a school because his work is moving him out there. Okay. So that started the brainstorm. And they asked me a year before it's time to leave. And I was pretty excited. I said, yeah, I'll do that. Okay. So I guess I had wanted to teach before then, but I didn't have any money to do it. California had at that time much denser jiu-jitsu community and school. So if you wanted, and we moved out in 2015 and opened, but in 2015, if you lived in Southern California and want to open a jiu-jitsu school, I was a brown belt at the time. You kind of needed to be a black belt.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu wasn't quite as established in Texas at that time, and it ended up being more established than I thought. And but ignorance is bliss. I'm like I was brave to go out.
So did you know anyone in Texas before you came out here?
Yes, okay. My friend Dane was probably half-hour drive south. He came up a couple times. Brought his friend in that ended up signing up. And sign-ups early on were just invaluable. We opened July... we kind of say July 4th was our founding day. Okay. Because we took over a failing Taekwondo school. And we got something like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And he got Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And actually, we had some time on Saturday too. And he says, let's split the rent in half. Okay. And the mats he had were great. They're A+ quality mats. That was lucky. It was kind of grapplers need a pretty good cushion. Taekwondo not nearly as much, so we were happy about that. That was lucky.
So you're early 30s, and you just quit your job, and you decided to come to Texas.
Yes.
Okay.
I said yes to everything without even visiting Texas.
What made you take that leap of faith, I guess?
My current job, I had clients and I'd help them open tutoring centers. And I saw the process from beginning to end, and I thought, I could do that.
Okay.
Totally different business, but it's still a brick and mortar. Couple of them were younger than me, and a little more inspiration there from them.
Right.
You know.
But did you know anything about Texas at this time?
So, yeah, just what you can find on Google.
Sure. Okay.
And as growing up in California, and you say the name of a state, I've always really liked that Texans are proud to be Texan. I just think that's the coolest thing. California, it's not the case. Okay. Go to Southern California, every other person say, do you like the Lakers, for example? I did, I was always kind of like appreciated the land I was in. So I like the Lakers, but every other person says, I hate the Lakers. It's like, why? There's no camaraderie or...
There's just too much stuff to do out there, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Texans are proud to be Texans.
Right. So you pack up.
I drove my car all the way.
Okay.
I had picked the apartment complex I was going to live in just online over the phone. And I hope I pick a good one, you know?
Sure.
And luckily I knew where our school was going to be as I'm searching for an apartment. So I pretty much just said, what's the closest nice one to it? Okay. And that's what I did.
What was the first location, I guess?
Our first location was 1,700 square feet, about 4 miles from where we are now, so north.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So when we moved, it was pretty good. Like, it wasn't that inconvenient for students. Some got closer.
Okay.
But where Neutral Grounds is now is like down this dark road. Be happy when I'm away from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in your 30s, you quit your job, you've just come to a state you've never been to.
Yeah.
You've decided to switch careers and become a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor.
Yes.
Right. You're in Texas, you're starting to teach. Like, how are you feeling at this time?
An enormous pressure to succeed.
Right.
I basically lived at the school morning to night, unless I'm going back to go to sleep in my apartment. And that paid off. If the phone rings, someone's answering it. If there was a knock on the door to check out the school, I was there. Right. So we got a few students that way. And like I was saying before, the first, you're just racing to get students. Every sign up when you have less than 20 is just the biggest deal.
Right.
Because I think our break even was around 65 or 70 students. So it's months and months without breaking even.
Right.
So 20 students is good. You're not bleeding money as much, but you're still bleeding money.
Right.
And then, we shared with a Taekwondo school. Well, that owner promised 1 year. And we said, we'll have made it by a year. So we promised half rent for a year. After 3 months, he says, I can't pay my half. I can pay half of my half. So we had to spring for that.
Right.
Funny, talking about this, I forgot that. And then the following month, same thing, he could pay half. What are we going to do,
Okay.
And then after that, he didn't pay at all. And so...
You just took over, I guess.
We had to.
Okay.
Yeah. We really banked on him paying half rent till we got to at least 40 students or 50 or 60. Sure. But that was a very unpleasant surprise.
Yeah.
Shame on him. Or worse than that, that was his plan the whole time. His business is failing. He's never there. The guy's running it. Hey guys, I'm sorry if you're listening. You guys didn't do a good job. I started to think, I don't think this guy cares, and the manager he has running it is doing like a bare minimum job. So I'd go in like in the parking lot 10 minutes before their class starts, and I see the instructor, I see the students showing up, and then the door's locked, and then it's 5 o'clock, class is supposed to start. 5 minutes later, the instructor runs in and hustles and, hey, let's start. And I'm like, that's not good,
right.
I saw this unfolding. So I called and I let the owner know. I'm like, we want you guys to succeed because we don't want you to drag us down.
Right.
So, he hustled us, but we still made it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. At this time, though, you're an employee of the school, though, right? Are you part of the ownership, or? So,
in early talks, I said, I do not want a boss. I'll do this if I'm 50-50.
Okay.
So he said, no problem. And before we came, we decided the dynamic like that on when you look at other business models or other people who have done a venture similar to this doesn't work. So then I agreed to be an employee. I think I was like a contractor.
Okay.
But the attitude we had with each other was 50-50.
Okay.
We'd both make decisions about everything. He'd ask me my opinion, and so that's how it was the first few years.
Okay.
But
the reason I ask is because we can transition to the next phase of this, and that is something very exciting is happening.
Yes.
You're opening your own school.
Right. I've parted ways from my previous business partner. Learned a lot.
Yep.
We have a lot of very happy memories.
Yep.
I feel we've made a huge impact in people's lives.
Yep. I can testify to that. Yep.
But now, I'm very excited. I'm going to be able to make all the decisions.
Right.
I'll have mentors to ask. I'll run the idea by people with more experience than me in business. My professor's been very supportive since the day he met me, and it's very early in my venture here.
Okay. And this is your professor in California. He knows this is happening.
Yes.
Okay. How do you feel? This is exciting because we've never actually interviewed anyone starting off from scratch.
So the partnership break was abrupt and unexpected for me. So, but I had thought about, I want my own business soon, or, early 2023, late 2022. So when that partnership ended, I said, okay, it's on. I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I talked to family. So with them and my own savings, I have the money.
Okay.
I'm learning every step. I did a little research, talked to lawyers and CPAs, and I have a bunch of friends who've started businesses, and I'm like, okay, the LLC seems like the way to go, at least in the beginning.
Sure.
So I learned about that.
Have you filed for everything yet? Is that all?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Do you have a name for the school?
Not yet.
Okay. Awesome. All right.
Last week when we were supposed to have it, I thought I bet I'll have my name by next week, but I haven't set it in stone. But that's very soon.
Okay. And you're risking your own money right now.
Correct.
No loans or anything like that.
Well, a little from my parents.
Okay.
A lot from the family.
Okay.
Yeah. Parents and sister. But a lot of it's mine. I have a very strong communal support with, I still consider them my students.
Okay.
Even though I don't have a brick and mortar. So I think that's a unique spin I'll have compared to another entrepreneur, is especially with an academy. I've already done this 0 to 60 students. Day one, nobody. Day two, nobody. So I think day one I'll have, more than 10, more than 20.
Okay.
So it's like fast forwarding, 6 months.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Do you have a location yet?
No. I found one. I liked it a lot. The landlord declined because there's another martial arts in that plaza.
Okay.
There's probably 2 more I'm like really very excited about, and I would take it.
Okay.
It checks a lot of my boxes.
Okay.
Size, proximity to my house, also proximity to my current students.
Okay. Will you be in the Frisco area?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right.
I would go as north is like 380, but I want to go south of 380 and like west of Preston.
Okay.
For those listeners that.
Sure. So you're still deciding on a place.
Yeah.
Equipment, have you gotten all that together? How's that like?
So I know the mats I want.
Okay.
At the last school, we had long strips, and they're essentially glued with a piece of tape at the seam. Mm-hmm. That takes a lot of work to maintain. Just at some point, at one point we were just, every 2 months we got to spend half an hour to fix the mats.
Right.
My professor and a lot of schools have just these rectangles, and if you get them tight enough with like a 2x4, they're a little better.
Okay.
Yeah. Nothing's gonna tear. If one tears, you pull it out, put a brand new one in, easy.
Sure.
It's like a tile.
Okay. And in the beginning, will you be the only instructor for now, or will there be other?
Yes, but I'll have assistants.
Okay.
I'm gonna start with probably, it'll be me plus one, mm-hmm. and as class grows, I'll add another instructor, but then I'll add another class. So then that'll bring it down till I'm like equalized. I can't add any more classes because there's only so much prime time during the week.
Sure.
So I've done all this. That part I have dialed in better than anything.
Right.
I've got like the new entrepreneur side where I'm learning and I'm green thumb, and then I'm a veteran at the teaching and the setting up X, Y, and Z. Okay. I know what I want my layout of my school to be. And I learned, I've seen 2 schools now go from 0 to 200.
Okay.
Evaldo's and my last school. Mm-hmm. So, and Evaldo moved. Evaldo went from 1,500 square spot to, I'm going to say 3,000, maybe a little bigger. And then when I came to Texas, we started with, I think we started with 1,700 and then went to 3,000.
Right. Well, Matt, I can't tell you how excited I am for you.
Yeah.
How about this? We end with this. What are your thoughts about jiu-jitsu? Anybody trying to get into it? Do you have any tips and advice?
Yes.
Yep.
I have a lot of tips. Well, I'm going to talk to the people that kind of are on the fence and don't pull the trigger.
Okay.
Not every school's like mine. Most are. People are afraid, am I going to have to spar someone the first day? Am I going to be able to make it through the whole class? I haven't exercised at all. We know this. You walk in, we'll take care of you. Okay. We're not going to put a lot of pressure on you day one. We want to show you we want to show you the facility. You'll watch us teach. If you like our teaching style, you'll meet other people. You'll be partnered with someone, and you might try one school and think this is a great fit for me right off the bat. That's for adults. A lot of them kind of just a little bit afraid to walk in the door, but they don't need to be.
Okay.
You got that one in like 50 schools that are kind of rough. Okay. It's like a Cobra Kai, right? They meet the cliche. And then families who want to put their kids in. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is great for confidence building. Obviously, there's exercise. They're constantly some type of adversity, and then they overcome it again and again and again. Maybe it's a kid that gets the better of them in class more often than not, and one day they tap that kid out, or that kid doesn't pass their guard. Another one is, for me, I have 3 age groups. So I'll use, say a 7-year-old turns 8. They move to the 8, 9, and 10-year-olds group. So they're used to being with 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. And they see these older kids and they're intimidated, and the parent's like, I don't know if little Johnny's ready. And I'm like, no, him being afraid is good. He's going to be kind of scared in the car ride. He's going to walk in the door a little afraid. About 2 minutes into class, his anxiety is going to drop by tenfold, and he'll have conquered this adversity. I've seen it 100 times. And then the kid's proud of themselves, and they learn this lesson.
Wow. Well, I can say that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I have a 10-year-old that's taking classes with you, and she is so calm now, right? There used to be a lot of anxiety at school just because of our size, and if there was any sort of physical altercation or intimidation, she'd immediately shut down or get very flustered and just lose it, right? And now it's really easy for her to walk away or not get involved because she knows she can take care of herself.
Right.
Right.
In my class, she's had kids much bigger than her pushing her, grabbing her neck, trying to submit her, and she's taken them down. She's submitted them. Some of the really big ones, she's came out of that 3-4 minute battle perfectly fine, and that kid has training.
Right.
So Brian or Michelle, who's picking on her at school, doesn't have training, and if they do, then the instructor kind of needs to be aware of that.
Sure. Well, Matt, this was a pleasure. We are all rooting for you. I hope maybe a year from now we'll have another talk.
Yeah.
See where you are, see what you've learned as an entrepreneur, and I wish you all the success in the world.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. Everybody likes to talk about themselves.
Sure, absolutely.
And I absolutely would do one in a year or whenever.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure.